I don't care about the cars. I just want to fight. That's all.
Exact title. And it's just a rumor.
This is Michael Jace, a 52-year-old accomplished actor and devoted father of 3 who gunned down his wife of 11 years in their family home while their 2 youngest sons listened from their bedroom.
Has been found guilty of second-degree murder in the 2014 shooting death of his wife, that according to prosecutors. 53-year-old Jace admitted to shooting his wife April during an argument.
The man you see here played a police officer on the hit television series The Shield, a role that brought him fame and steady income for 7 years. But on May 19, 2014, police would arrive at the Jace residence on Bryanhurst Avenue to find April Jace, a 40-year-old track star and financial aid counselor, lying dead in the hallway with 3 gunshot wounds. Just minutes before her death, April had texted her husband, "You should go to sleep, we'll talk tomorrow," believing he had left to stay at a friend's house. But that peaceful evening would never happen. This is the deeply disturbing story of how Michael Jace, a once successful actor's financial collapse and jealousy led him to murder the woman who was holding his family together. But to understand how this ended in murder, let's trace back to what their lives looked like long before the gunshots. Michael Andrew Jace was born with dreams of becoming the next Sidney Poitier or Denzel Washington. His acting career began in 1992 when he landed a role on Law and Order, and throughout the 90s, Michael kept consistent work in an industry where most actors struggle for gigs. He appeared in Forrest Gump as a Black Panther Party member, played boxer Mitch Green in the Mike Tyson biopic, and secured parts in dozens of television shows. During this early success, Michael married his girlfriend Jennifer Bittman. Shortly after, they welcomed a son named Jordan into the world. From the outside, Michael had everything: a loving marriage, beautiful children, successful careers, and a comfortable home in Los Angeles. But beneath the surface, something dark was brewing. In 1997, just years into their marriage, Jennifer filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. What followed was a nasty court battle that would reveal disturbing truths about Michael's character. Court documents showed that Jennifer alleged Michael was verbally and physically abusive towards both her and Jordan. She claimed he threatened to kill her if they went to war over visitation rights. Jennifer's friend Maria provided testimony stating she witnessed Michael choke Jennifer and slam her head into a wall while baby Jordan cried in his crib next to them. This was the first major warning sign, a documented history of domestic violence and controlling behavior. But as we'll see, this pattern would repeat itself with devastating consequences. Despite the messy divorce, Michael's professional life continued to thrive. In 1999, he landed his first starring role, playing NBA legend Michael Jordan in a biopic. Then, in 2000, he secured a role in The Replacements. During this period, Michael met a woman named April on the set of one of his projects, and they hit it off instantly by showing intense interest towards each other. 46-year-old April was born in Southern California and grew up with a passion for 2 things: education and athletics. She earned her degree in early childhood and adolescent development from Cal State Fullerton, laying the foundation for her future as a dedicated educator. But April wasn't just focused on academics. She was also an accomplished sprinter whose speed took her to national and international competitions, where she competed in the W35 division for female athletes between 35 and 40 years old. April was certainly a woman brimming with joy, ambition, and an unshakable zest for life. Her close friends and family fondly recalled her as someone who was never afraid to dream big and chase her goals with unwavering determination. Her confidence and drive were infectious, and they always left an indelible mark on everyone who crossed her path. April had a son from a previous relationship named Sivoy, and Michael had Jordan, so they became a blended family. In 2002, Michael landed what would become his most well-known role, Officer Julian Lowe on the hit FX series The Shield, a show that ran for 7 seasons and put Michael on the map as a household name. In 2003, Michael and April got married. They settled into a home on Brynhurst Avenue, just blocks west of Crenshaw Boulevard. In 2005, they welcomed their first son together, Nehemiah. 2 years later, their second son, Caleb, arrived. Together, they seemed to share a stable, loving, and supportive bond. The couple would often showcase their love, sharing affectionate moments that reflected the depth of their relationship. To anyone watching from the outside, April's life appeared to be the perfect blend of professional success and personal happiness. From every outside perspective, the Jaces had achieved the American dream. They had a loving marriage, beautiful children, successful careers, and a comfortable home in Los Angeles. But the toxicity he had in his first marriage was still there, waiting to resurface. The man behind the image was quietly unraveling, and his career was the first place it showed. As it turned out, the Shield TV series ended its run in 2008, and with it went Michael's steady paycheck. While he continued landing occasional roles in shows like Southland, CSI, and Burn Notice, the work became increasingly sporadic. Financial records also painted a picture of his downward spiral. In 2009, he earned $71,000. In 2010, $75,000. But by 2011, his income had plummeted to just $17,000. In March of 2011, after nearly 20 years of consistent work, Michael filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. His debts were becoming too heavy to handle alone. He owed over $500,000 in total. He had defaulted on 2 mortgages, owed $222,000 in back taxes, and had racked up $166,000 in credit card debt. What once felt like an unshakable financial foundation now seemed to be crumbling beneath them. While Michael struggled professionally, April was soaring. In 2011, she was excelling in track and field, becoming a world championship finalist in the 100-meter dash, winning gold with the U.S. 4x100-meter relay team, and ranking 5th in the United States in the 200-meter dash. In March of 2013, April began working at Biola University as a counselor in the financial aid office, which meant she was now carrying the bulk of the family's financial burden, paying the mortgage, buying groceries, and keeping the lights on. This role reversal ate away at Michael, as the fact that his wife's income was keeping the family afloat made him feel inadequate as a provider. But there was something else slowly eating at Michael beyond just the financial strain. Michael began suspecting that April was having an affair. He couldn't shake the feeling that another man was giving her what he couldn't provide. Although April denied all his claims, Michael's jealousy continued to intensify up to the point where many who knew the couple believed Michael was jealous of April's accomplishments, and while she flourished in her passion, he was floundering in his. April's track career continued to shine despite the tension at home. In 2013, she won the Southern California USA Track and Field 100-meter championship and placed second in the W35 Invitational race at the Mount Sac Relays, achievements that should have been celebrated, but instead seemed to further distance the bridge between her and Michael. Michael began confiding in a man named Kenneth Brown, someone he knew through church who had also worked with him on the Shield. Michael asked Kenneth to pray for his marriage, a request that would take on haunting significance in the days to come. Now, do you remember how this story started? With April texting Michael, "You should go to sleep, we'll talk tomorrow," just minutes before her death? This is how we got there. By May of 2014, the cracks in the Jace marriage had become impossible to hide, as Michael and April were arguing constantly, with Michael becoming increasingly controlling and accusatory about what he perceived as April's infidelity and lack of submission. Michael repeatedly threw Bible verses at April, questioning her devotion to God and suggesting that a godly woman wouldn't want to leave her marriage, which is a classic tactic of domestic abusers who use religious guilt to control their partners and make victims feel as though leaving the relationship would be a sin. The tension reached a breaking point on Sunday, May 18, 2014, when April, her son Sevoy, and April's nephew Christopher went to the movies. Savoy and Christopher stayed the night. Early the next morning, they were awakened by Michael yelling at April, "You don't have a godly reason for a divorce." The yelling continued for about 5 minutes before they heard crashes. The loud sounds prompted Savoy into grabbing a baseball bat whilst he and Christopher walked towards the noise. They found a vase smashed on the floor, an ironing board knocked over. They also found Michael and April standing by the dining room table in what appeared to be the aftermath of a physical altercation. About 15 minutes later, April left to drive Nehemiah and Caleb to school, then headed for work. But the day ahead would be filled with ominous text exchanges. Later that morning, April texted Kenneth Brown and asked him to check on Michael. Kenneth texted Michael, "When trouble comes, be full of joy." Michael's response was unusual. He typed, "Maybe too late. April wants out and I'm tired of pleading." Throughout the day, Michael and April exchanged increasingly tense text messages. At 10:45 in the morning, April sent the message that should have been the final warning. "I don't want you throwing things and breaking things and screaming lies to the boys. I'm afraid to come home." When a woman says she's afraid to come home, that's not a marital dispute. That's a cry for help. That's a woman in danger. And tragically, no one intervened in time. Michael responded, "I could vacate the premises for the night. Just give me a time and I'll leave," before telling her that his biggest mistake was being involved with a woman who wasn't submitted to God, continuing to use religious manipulation even as their marriage was crumbling. That afternoon, Michael texted April, "You've thrown me under the bus, April, and you're walking out on the boys." He then accused April again of having an affair, which she denied. April replied, "Stop throwing the Bible at me." At 4:54, April asked Michael if he had left the house, and when he said yes, she believed him. But this was a lie that would later prove that what he was about to do to her was actually premeditated. Michael told April that he would spend the night at his friend Evan's house, though he'd been drinking since 10 or maybe 11 that morning, drowning his anger and resentment in alcohol. His final text before April came home read, "The tongue has the power of life and death," a chilling biblical reference that would take on horrifying meaning just hours later. At 8:04, April replied, "You should go to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." At around 8:20, April arrived home with Nehemiah and Caleb, believing Michael had gone to Evan's house. But when she walked into the house, her eyes couldn't believe who was standing in the dining room waiting for her. It turns out that Michael had never left and instead armed himself and waited for his wife to return home, lying in wait like a predator stalking prey. April was surprised to see Michael still at home, but before she could think much about it, her son Caleb rushed over to meet her. He climbed onto her lap and began playing with her. This tender moment between mother and son would end up being shattered within minutes. Shortly afterwards, Michael told Caleb to go to his room. Michael then grabbed April by her arm and pulled her into the hallway before pulling out a gun and opening fire, hitting April in her back as she fell to the floor, the woman who had defended him during his custody battle and stood by him through bankruptcy, now dying on their hallway floor. Michael stood over his wife and yelled, "If you like running, then run to heaven." He then fired 2 more times, hitting April in both legs. At 8:23, Michael texted April's stepfather, Carlos, "Come get the boys. I just shot April." Carlos and April's mother, Kay, sped towards the Jace home. Carlos called 911. At 8:31, Michael called 911 himself. He told the operator there had been a shooting and quickly hung up. The operator called him back. He answered and said, "I shot my wife. The weapon was on the table by the door and he was nowhere near it." Jace said he wanted paramedics because his intent was not to kill her. The 911 operator instructed him to step outside with his phone, and the call ended with Jace directing the officers to the hallway. When police arrived, they found Michael standing in the doorway, and as officers entered the house, they found April lying on her back in the hallway. Rescue personnel transported her to South Point Hospital, but tragically, despite their efforts, April succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced dead at just 40 years old, her dreams and ambitions extinguished by the man who had promised to love and protect her. Nehemiah and Caleb had been standing in the doorway of their room during the entire incident. They witnessed their mother's murder. These 2 young boys, ages 10 and 8, watched their father execute their mother. Think back to the beginning of this story. Remember Michael's history of domestic violence with Jennifer? Remember how he choked her and slammed her head into a wall while their son Jordan cried in his crib? Now, years later, 2 more of his sons were forced to witness his violence. The pattern had repeated itself, but this time it ended in murder. Michael was publicly handcuffed and arrested at the scene.
Yeah, they're already down there. Okay. We're just trying to move them down and get
Yeah, no. And that's why
At the police station, investigators interviewed Michael. He told them he was in so much pain and just wanted April to feel some pain too. Michael tried to claim April had lunged at him with a knife and he'd acted in self-defense, but investigators found no knife at the scene. A few days later, Michael called April's brother Carlo from jail. He admitted he wanted April to be in pain. He said he wanted her to lose something she loved, her ability to run. The trial began on Monday, May 23, 2016. Prosecutor Tanaz Mokayev argued the murder was premeditated. She pointed out how Michael lied about going to Evan's house, instead arming himself and waiting for April to return home. The most heartbreaking witness testimony came from 10-year-old Nehemiah. He told the court that he witnessed his father grab his mother and pull her into the hallway. He recalled watching his mother fall to the floor and his father stand over her and yell, "If you like running, then run to heaven," before opening fire. On Tuesday, May 31, 2016, the verdict came in. Michael Jace was found guilty of second-degree murder and gun charges. While April's family had hoped for first-degree murder, they were satisfied that her death was proven to be murder, not an accident or crime of passion. At sentencing on Friday, June 10, 2016, Michael apologized to April's family.
No justification for my actions that night at all. I'm profoundly sorry for the pain that
But spent most of his statement downplaying his actions and insisting he didn't mean to kill her.
I didn't commit first-degree murder. There was no premeditated anything. I realize it does not bring her back, and it doesn't help, but it would seem to me to matter that the facts of what happened be brought about.
Numerous members of April's family stormed out of the courtroom during his self-serving statement. Judge Robert J. Perry sentenced Michael Jace to 40 years to life in prison. April's memory lives on through her family, friends, and many accomplishments. Everyone who knew her says she was a wonderful person with a great smile and infectious energy. She's remembered as a beautiful soul who was taken too soon by a man who couldn't handle her success, her independence, or the reality that his glory days were behind him. She's remembered as a beautiful soul who was taken too soon by a man who couldn't handle her success, her independence, or the reality that his glory days were behind him. But April Jace's story should never be reduced to the way her life ended. She was more than a victim of domestic violence, more than a headline, more than a footnote in her husband's downfall. April was a woman who ran toward life with everything she had, toward her goals, her children, and her purpose. She was the kind of mother who showed her sons what discipline looked like, not through fear, but through example. She taught them resilience on the track, integrity at home, and compassion in how she treated others. Even as her marriage deteriorated, April continued to show up for her family, for her work, and for her community, quietly carrying a weight that no one should ever have to bear alone. Her death forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Domestic violence doesn't always look chaotic from the outside. Sometimes it hides behind success, religion, respectability, and silence. Sometimes it escalates slowly through control, jealousy, intimidation, and fear until the danger becomes lethal. April tried to leave. She tried to protect her children. She said she was afraid to come home, and that should have been enough for someone to step in. The tragedy of April Jace is not just that her life was stolen, but that it was preventable. Her story stands as a reminder that warning signs matter, that patterns repeat, and that believing victims can mean the difference between life and death. Today, April lives on through the people who loved her, through the memories of her laughter, her strength, and her relentless drive. And while justice may have been served in a courtroom, the real responsibility lies with all of us to listen more closely, to intervene sooner, and to never dismiss fear as just another argument. Because when someone says they're afraid to come home, that is not a private matter. That is a life on the line. Let us know what you think about this story in the comment section below. May April's soul rest well.